なんで CM が入ってんだよ。手がけずにだから手がけずにちょっとごめんなさい。ビデオの前にさ、お父さんがごめんなさい。してんだよ。ごめんなさい。
先に寝ますから。
おやすみなさい。
すみません。
ここちゃんとやりますから。痛い。ごめんなさい。顔をやめてください。なんだその顔よ。顔だけはやめて。顔はやめて。
チータン動物園で生まれたアライグマの赤ちゃんに名前がつきました。ヘレンちゃんです。チータン動物園でアライグマの赤ちゃんが生まれるのは初めてです。
これもらえます？
園内の新しいアイドルとして
可愛いですね。ちょっとでいいんで。では。
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the 31 Nights of Hara Meet Hara. The Perverts Have Spoken. Dramatic pause. Alright. Yes. Episode, what is this? We're on episode 10 now? Episode 10? Look at that. That is almost a third of the way there, people. And after last night's complete, utter insanity. Yes, oh my goodness, visitor queue. Yeah, I know someone commented, like, they asked me if it's as bad as Eat the Squirrel Girl. Yeah, I mean, content-wise, Eat the Squirrel Girl is just much more graphic, but with, still, they're both pretty screwed up, man. So, anyways, tonight, I'm going to do something a little bit more interesting. Well, I don't know if you consider it more interesting, but a little more different than a regular review. No, I am going to talk about some movie franchises. Actually, all I'm really going to say is the best and the worst of the franchise. And so it's not quite like a top 10 list or a bottom 10 list, but basically I'm just going to talk about some... my nose itched there for a second. My bad. But no, I am going to talk about some of the more notable franchises in horror film history. And I'm going to tell you what I think is the best one and what is the worst one. So, enjoy! Alright, so starting off, we are going to be talking about one of the greatest horror movie series of all time. It's probably the longest series, and that is Friday the 13th. It's one of my personal favorites, and I think that the greatest Friday the 13th movie is Part 4, the final chapter. I think it just encapsulates everything that is awesome about Friday the 13th. It's got violence, gore, sex, nudity, comedy. The complete package is the first Friday the 13th movie where Jason wears the hockey mask from the beginning, and just the death scene with the machete sliding down the machete is just so great and encompasses everything that I love about Friday the 13th. And then let's talk about the converse side, the worst Friday the 13th, and that has to be the 9th one, the one that couldn't even use the words Friday the 13th in it, and that is Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. That movie it doesn't really have Jason in it all that much, and it's just horrible. It doesn't have any real flow to it. It doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th movie. The production values seem lackluster in comparison to the earlier installments, and it just felt really flat, really poorly done, and I don't think it treated the subject matter, Jason, with enough respect. So, there you have it. Friday the 13th Part 4 is the best. Part 9, Jason Goes to Hell, is the worst. Alright, moving on, we are going to the rival of the Friday the 13th series for much of the 80s, and that is the Nightmare on Elm Street series. A great series, very original, and I have to say that my favorite, it's not the first one, not the second one, but it's the third one. I think that is the most fully realized Nightmare on Elm Street. You have Freddy in his prime. He's scary, frightening, but he's also wisecracking and likable. And you get the whole Dream Warriors aspect going on in there, where you have the characters that can actually battle with Freddy using their dreams, and that's really kind of what the nightmares are. The nightmares aren't Freddy's creation, but Freddy uses their own fears, their own insecurities against them, and that's how nightmares are. It's your own fears and insecurities coming up into your mind. And so I think this one was the pinnacle of the series. Great special effects, great story. I just love it. It's great. I mean, sure, it's not as dark and sinister as the first one, but really the most enjoyable, most entertaining, and therefore my favorite and my pick for the best. The worst would be the sixth one, Freddy's Dead. Kind of weird how the one that supposedly ends it all, even though I guess Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, was supposed to end it all, but whatever. Was really bad. I mean, this one is just, it's sad. It's got, was it Roseanne Barr, for anyone who doesn't know, Tom Arnold's in it. It's got Alice Cooper, but it just doesn't, it feels weird. They do this weird thing about, like, spirits come into Freddy Krueger while he's getting burnt to death to make some sort of evil pact, and it's just, And then, of course, it kind of goes into the whole psyche of Freddy when he was growing up, son of 1,000 maniacs or 100 maniacs. It just falls apart. It doesn't feel right. It's like part of a Nightmare on Elm Street movie got made, and then some other weird movie was slapped into it in bits and pieces. So it just doesn't really work. Falls apart. So, blah. So moving on, we are going through the series that kind of started it all, and that's the Halloween series. And of course, my favorite, and I think most people would agree that the best one is the first one, Halloween. It's just so iconic. The music, you've got the silent stalking killer, Mike Myers. You've got Donald Pleasance, awesome performance. Look into his eyes, and I saw the devil's eyes. I spent the first part of my life trying to reach him, and the last part of my life trying to keep him locked away forever. It's such a great movie all around. Scary, spooky, like the tone is just dead on, and the lighting they used, just beautiful. And then we go to the worst, which is just a gigantic freaking turd of a movie, and that is The Curse of Mike Myers, number 6. It's just the plot is just messed up. You have no idea what's really going on. They're like, Mike Myers is like some agent of some business corporation, druid sect thing, whatever. It just didn't make any sense, and was friggin' boring. I mean, from start to finish, it just lacked any kind of entertainment value. And it left you with more questions than answers. And honestly, it just doesn't hold up well either. I've tried watching it again recently, and it's just such a freaking mess. I know there's supposed to be like some super ultra cut that was done by some people that made it like better, but I don't know how you could do that. I mean, sure, the Mythbusters proves that you can polish a turd, but why would you want to? Come on, it's bad. So, moving on from Halloween, we're going to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. And honestly, this probably wasn't supposed to be a series until people realized that horror movie series are big money, and so they had to make like a second one and a third one, and then they made a god-awful bunch of them. But the best, of course, is the first one. It's the one that just nobody expected and just messed with your mind. Like, just vacationing teenagers. All of a sudden, they come across this house, and man, they get picked off one by one. And the cannibal people and Leatherface, I mean, it's just dark, gritty. The way they filmed it just had that kind of grain and scratchy, really earthy, almost like you found this film in like a cellar somewhere and it really happened. And just wonderfully ghoulish and frightening. And then you get the pile of turd vomit, which is The Next Generation, which I've covered in my one video where I talk about the worst horror movies I've ever seen. So if you want to know more about that, click the card here when I finally get one up there. So there you go, Texas Chainsaw. The best, the first, the worst, The Next Generation. I don't really mind the remakes. They weren't that bad. Not as bad as Next Generation. Oh my god. So the next series we are going to talk about is the Saw series. There is a more contemporary series for you people there. And honestly, the first, of course, was the best. It was the most brilliant. It was the best twists and turns. The whole detectives versus the Jigsaw killer. And Carrie Elway's great performance. Just a wonderfully solid movie that gets a bad reputation because of the whole talk about torture porn. And that movie, honestly, wasn't that gory or that violent. It was just a really smart mystery horror thriller and really great. And that's why the worst is number 2, because number 2 was none of that. And it was so disappointing that everything that came after it was better just because you dropped to the lowest of the low with Saw 2. It was not good. I hated it. I felt it did not have anything that the first one had. It was so inferior in so many ways. And so just the context of it made 3, 4, 5 better just because you weren't being disappointed every frame of the movie like I was with Saw 2. So it's kind of a personal thing. But man, it just, oh god, I just hated it. So, moving from Saw, we are going to go talk about the Hellraiser series. The Hellraiser series. And of course, number 1 is the best. It is, I mean, honestly, part 2 is really close. But there are a little bit two different dynamics going on from part 1 and part 2. Part 2 is more about hell and the Cenobites. And part 1 is more about this creepy uncle, I guess, somewhat haunted house, murder and flesh tearing, ripping, whatever. And it was so weird and avant-garde and just out there and unlike anything else before it that it stuck with you. And Pinhead, wow, the Cenobites you just looked at them and you're like, oh, And so, going to the worst, and honestly, I don't know if this is technically the worst because this is when I stopped watching Hellraiser movies, but it was Hellraiser 5, Inferno. Oh my, boring! Holy cow! How can you make Hellraiser boring? I mean, how do you do it? I mean, you've got nasty gore and hell and Cenobites, and you just decided to make a movie that did nothing good with them. I mean, even 4 had some great moments, even though it ended up in friggin' space, which usually is the death knell for a series. When it goes to space, it's over. But man, 5, no wonder why it was like a straight-to-video release. That was the end of the Hellraiser series for me. I mean, I don't care what came after that. I didn't bother looking. So 5 killed the series for me. It did. And that's how bad it is. So, moving on from Hellraiser, we're going to our last series that I want to talk about, and that is the Phantasm series. And the reason I want to talk about the Phantasm series is because the long-awaited 5th installment has a release date of October 31st, though how accurate that's going to be, I don't know, but I've been waiting forever for this friggin' movie, and hopefully it's going to come up and be out in theaters on the 31st, and I can finally watch it. And hopefully it's not as horrible as the one that I'm going to talk about after I tell you about the first and best one, which is the first one, of course, Hellraiser 1. Just, once again, it's a new idea. It's fresh. It's bold. It's never been done, really, and you get that kind of magic when you first see the tall man walking towards the heroes, and you hear his feet clanging in the hallway with the echoes, and then you see the spheres and the blades and the brain drilling. I mean, it's ridiculous, and the jump scares were great jump scares. They were not cheap, and the ending blew me away because I just, bam, boy, it's awesomeness. And honestly, I don't mind number 2, and number 3 was pretty good, but my God, number 4, oh, what the hell? Like, they were trying to explain what was going on, but what you got was a freaking mess. The original script was supposed to be like this great, awesome, grand thing, and I think they just didn't have a budget to do the original script. And what happened was just a muddled, confused, just boring. Yes, boring. Once again, there's a theme to all these bad ones. Boredom. I mean, they tried to get too much into it, and then you don't get any of the horror aspects, and there's just too much exposition and trying to do a plot, and the plot wasn't good and was just confusing and really unsatisfying. And I hope that the 5th one comes and it just rights all the wrongs that the 4th one, Oblivion, did. But I digress. There you go. Recapping, you got Friday the 13th, 4, awesome. Nightmare on Elm Street, 3, awesome. Halloween, 1, awesome. Texas Chainsaw, 1, awesome. Saw, 1, awesome. Hellraiser, 1, awesome. And Phantasm, 1, awesome. And now for the crap, Friday the 13th, Part 9. Basically, Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare, which is Part 6. Halloween 6. The Curse of Michael Myers, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, the 4th one, blah. Saw 2, blah. Hellraiser 5, Inferno, blah. And then Phantasm, Oblivion, number 4 of that series. And there you have it. Oh my God, yeah!
So how was it? Did you agree with my choices? Do you disagree? Why don't you comment in the section below and tell me, no man, this one's the best one, or this one's the worst one. And if I didn't talk about your film franchise, maybe it's because I don't like any of them, like the Leprechaun franchise. But anyways, until then, people, leave those comments in that comment section and tell me what you guys think about what I did, and maybe, I don't know, do you want me to go back into the den of perversion? Because I've got an interesting movie that I could do for next time. Or did you want me to kind of mix it up again and maybe find something a little bit more contemporary for next episode? I don't know. They're not going to get a lot of time to tell me about it, I guess. But it might give me a little bit like number 2 episode, 3 episodes from now. Maybe 5 episodes from now. Anyways, but until then, you guys stay scary, internet. And, yeah.